over that. If there's any proposed changes, modifications, additions. Any comments online? Take a motion to approve the agenda. This.
Yeah, second.
Right. Any discussion? All right. Let's see, public participation. So do we have people?
So I'll just to Kelly and the CAC. So I engaged with our legal counsel on how much flexibility does the CAC have for public participation in terms of being a rule advisory committee. So the feedback is the CAC has full agency on how they want to receive public participation on this. So the CAC can limit feedback from the group to we're just going to have everybody get in a line and provide their comment. The CAC can also be way more flexible with if someone just wants to chime in, raise a hand and speak up. You also have the flexibility to do that too. If anybody was brought to the gathering by a CAC member, it's just important that how this person got here be sort of shared out for everybody. So as far as that goes, I just wanted to clarify that's we're fully able to take and solicit all feedback from the group if the CAC wants to take that approach.
Okay. So I guess I'd ask other members, how your feelings on if you prefer have it be more formal, or when we get into the discussion, just allow people to provide feedback as we go.
What I'm used to on meetings is public comment usually is like two-phase. The first is general public comment. That's generally at the public comment stage. And then the second thing is when there's a public meeting or then there are comments that are specifically to address the subject of the public meeting. But that's what I've seen in other
Yeah, our
instances.
board meetings do that where we have kind of comment not on agenda or a comment that's on the agenda. And so I think that could be an approach that we do, but also too, as we're going through questions about CAC items, and so we have lots of public participants here who aren't on the CAC, and if they have something to chime in, I guess the decision from the committee of how the committee wants to receive that potential input. Is it just well, let's see what it is, or do we want to hold those until a particular point in time in the agenda?
Why don't we hear from Joe?
I just wanted to say, I don't know if you caught Adam Jones, who I know, hey, Adam, who can't hear me. He just put a note up saying no audio. I don't know if that's something you can do on your end. It's probably his, because I hear you.
Yeah, I think that probably our system's good then.
Maybe Adam's got the snag.
Hmm.
So I guess I would put it out there just out of curiosity. Do we have any public participation or comments that are not related to the agenda first? Let's just see if there's anything not on the agenda. If there's not, then I guess I would propose that when we get into the heart of it, we could allow people to provide comments, but we would ask that they limit them to 3 minutes, kind of on course with what we would normally do for public participation, just for thinking about time. Does that sound reasonable?
And the CAC has full agency to decide the structure that you guys would like to do in receiving that input. So
Does that sound reasonable to the CAC?
I think it sounds really good. I also think it'd be nice if we could encourage, if it's possible, to encourage people to either email staff to be sent to the CAC, so that if they have comments that are really going to be a lot longer than 3 minutes, they don't have to truncate them or otherwise, stop in the middle of a paragraph to get what they want to get across.
Yeah, that sounds reasonable, because I think this is a big topic. So for now, if there's no public participation outside of our main topic, we can move forward from that, and we'll move on to the approval of the February meeting minutes. Everybody have a chance to look those over? Are there any changes, edits needed?
I had some questions regarding them. When we were in, it's under item 6. And then also under item 8, a couple of definitions I don't remember hearing. One was a crosswalk document. I'm not sure what that is. And then under roundtable, I'm not sure what an annual share out is either. So just asking for
Clarification.
clarification of what those two items are, a crosswalk document.
Well, I think we talked a bit about whether we called the crosswalk directly or referenced it, but this color coded sheet in the packet, that's the crosswalk. And so
okay.
that was speaking to how we're looking to present items to it. And then as far as the share out, I'd have to look to see to give myself the context.
Under item 8.
Oh, I see. So the annual, so that's, I think I recall using the annual share out. So that's the Oak Ridge Air, which is our wood stove change out program funded by an EPA grant up at Oak Ridge. They have it's kind of semi-annual, but annually in terms of 1 year, or once a year, they like to do it down in Eugene because the stakeholders are here. And then another year they do one up in Oak Ridge where the stakeholders are. And it kind of is a share out of the program over the last, set period of time, all the accomplishments and things that have taken place there.
Thank you. Good catch. Yeah. All right, anything else? Any other questions, comments? Otherwise, I'll take a motion to approve minutes. Second.
Second.
Any discussion? All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. So we'll move on to the board meeting overview, which we'll hand over to.
Yes, thanks, Kelly. So for the board meeting this month for March, the big items on there was, aside from the normal kind of consent agenda type items, the board elected our chair and our vice chair. So last time, this was an item that the board decided to delay by a month. And so the outcome of this election is Matt Keating was elected as the chair, and then Commissioner or Counselor Matt Keating with the City of Eugene was elected in the chair role. And then Commissioner David Lovell with Lane County maintains his role in the vice chair. From there, we had our financial report approvals. And then we had a staff report on a supplemental budget. So this is the time of year before we go into budget season where it's good practice for us as an organization to look at how much money we have spent against the budget for the fiscal year and how much money we have left for the fiscal year, and to project out if we believe that there's a need for a supplemental budget. Christina Ward, our finance manager, gave that staff report. And basically the conclusion is we are under budget and there's not a need for us to have a supplemental budget. And then from there was the director's report, which is here in the packet for the CAC. A lot of focus was really on the budget committee meeting that happened before the board meeting. And that was a good engagement too. But for the board meeting, that's the share out.
Great. Thank you. All right, so moving on to our topic at hand. The draft Title 43 rules were sent out last Thursday afternoon. So not quite as much time as we had hoped, but I'm not sure if people had a chance to look through them or get through all of them. So I guess how we want to kind of start this, because it is quite long.
Yeah.
And as Travis mentioned, it's at early stages. And so really it's about getting kind of to the bigger meaty changes. So there's obviously lots of little things and little changes that will come later, but since we are limited on time, we should probably focus on those bigger changes. So
Yeah.
do you guys want to
Yeah.
hand it over?
Thank you, Kelly. So for some context setting for everybody, so what you have, the documents that have been provided with the packet is one is a notice of proposed rulemaking. This is an item that is in draft, but when this rulemaking goes out for public comment, this is basically the package that the public will have to receive and review. So as the CAC looks through that, if there is any feedback in our notice of proposed rulemaking, which has questions like what's the financial impact on businesses and otherwise, we are very interested in feedback on there. This is not something that we're necessarily looking to dive into today. I think today our focus is more on the actual rule revisions themselves. Another item that's been provided to you as well is this crosswalk of proposed revisions. So essentially what it does, it's a color-coded table that goes through all of the changes throughout the document. If it's green, that's really kind of more of a Scribner adjustment or formatting. If it's orange, this is what we're calling kind of a moderate substantive impact. If it's yellow, that's more of a technical or a definition that we're changing. And then if it's red, that's like actual more of a behavior change that this rule may start to or would require in Lane County. And then the final item that was included in the packet is the actual red line of Title 43 itself. So just wanted to give some context setting for everybody so we're all understanding the documents we're looking at. And then we have a presentation that we can start. Thank you. And this presentation, we're going to go through kind of starting with what we believe to be the biggest changes, the most substantive changes, and then work backwards from there. Thank you. Will you click on the PowerPoint just that way? Okay, cool. Now I'm in there, so I got it. So Title 43 is all about asbestos. This is what we use as our rules and regulations across Lane County to protect the community and residents from asbestos exposure, because that is a pretty significant health component for public health and is why it's regulated. This is a community input part of the process. So I mentioned before we kind of started the meeting, you could say that not all of our T's are crossed and our I's are dotted, but that's on purpose. We're here kind of at a ground floor level to say what feedback can we implement into this process before we get too far down the road. And so as you can see, here's our rulemaking process. So we're still on that first step. All of the rest of this is what we have to go through before these rules really are effective in Lane County, or at least step 6. Once LRAPA's board adopts it, those rules are applicable in Lane County. So we are still very much at the technical and policy advice stage. The public is allowed to participate and give us that informal feedback before we get to the formal public commenting process. So the first change that we want to pull out here and make notes is section 43-00300 number 2 and number 3. This is number 57 and number 58 in your crosswalk. So on the big color coded table, if you find those numbers, that's what we're referring to. And so this is essentially a Title V source notification requirement. What this means is that if a source is doing a renovation, they have to let us know about that renovation, essentially. It used to be that this was just a demolition. If demolition was taking place, then they would have to let us know. And from an asbestos perspective, we wanted to have an insight into that. This is changing that to include renovation as well. And I will, please stop me if there's questions or comments as I'm going through this as well. Another larger change is section 43-00352. This was previously 15-8A, number 1661 in the crosswalk. So this is an owner exemption clarification. And so essentially we're changing owner to owner occupant. And what that means is under Title 43, you can remove asbestos from your own home, but our approach and how we think that is the regulatory approach is you have to be owner occupied. If you don't live in the home because you're renting it out to someone or something like that, you should have an abatement contractor doing that work. And it's only if you yourself live in the home and are occupying the home can you do that abatement work. This was an item that sometimes there was confusion in the past as we would work through engagements with folks. And so this change is our effort to make that clearer So that way there's more consistency in how it's being interpreted by people as they're reading the rules. Let's see, another big change is section 43002. This is number 64 in the crosswalk. So this is an emergency survey requirement. So this is a new item. So this is saying that if there is a disaster, so any commercial building, which is an apartment that has 5 or more units, or something that is just a commercial building, a school, a church, an industry facility, if there's an emergency, a fire, something happened, before that debris can start to be attended to, an asbestos abatement or asbestos survey needs to be done to clarify if there's any asbestos in it that should be abated before then it gets dealt with otherwise. So this is a new requirement that exists. This isn't something that we're replacing or changing. It's a new requirement under these rules and is where when I'm speaking to behavior change, that's one of the items that I'm meaning, is those circumstances. So this is another new section. This is more clearly defining what an asbestos survey looks like. So what's required is that it's from an accredited inspector and lab, a minimum of 3 random samples for sprayed or troweled materials. And then the survey reports must document some specific details, such as the location, the scope, how much was taken, friability, and then quantity. I see there's a question there. So I guess I'll look to the chair. And yeah, how do you want to solicit kind of comments from other,
Yeah, this is interesting because I wasn't sure if we were just gonna kind of start at the beginning with the big fish. Didn't realize there was gonna be a presentation. So I am open to questions coming. It might be helpful to have them as they come in. But we're definitely jumping all over the place already.
Yeah.
As far as like, I definitely thought we were gonna go a little bit bigger picture.
I see.
Just because, part of the thing for this is clarification, making things clearer. And there's definitely, as somebody who's unfamiliar with this, a lot of confusion on certain things. But there's time for that later. So what I would say is if people have comment, I'm okay with allowing them to.
I can make notes and just submit them later.
Well,
I think we're all gonna probably need to do that anyways, but if you guys have comments, I say let's.
And that this
Hear 'em.
is where when I wanted to get legal counsel on what flexibility we have and comments with folks saying, I have some technical subject matter expertise here and I have some input. And it's up to the CAC on how you want to receive that input. So.
Yeah, so as we mentioned earlier, I think we'll try to keep them, fairly short, so that we kind of know if we're on the same page with some of the big questions. But please plan on submitting written and more detailed stuff later. But yeah, if it's okay, if you don't mind as a presenter having questions as you come,
Yeah.
I'd suggest, go ahead and do that. All right.
Sorry, do you want
Adam
to,
Jones, I think it was.
Fine.
well, if you go to the teams, actually, Heather, I think someone had their hand up.
It was Adam.
Oh,
Just
sorry,
remember.
I see, yeah.
You should be able to go ahead. Adam, can you hear us?
No, I think, maybe not.
Hear me now?
Yeah.
Hello?
Yes. Hello.
Yeah.
All right, go
So you
ahead.
can hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, sorry about my my technical prowess is not very good. So I was looking at this and I actually thought that the improvement on the inspection language was good. I've been in the asbestos industry in Lane County for about 25 years. The 2 things that I was curious about was the minimum 3 random samples of sprayed or troweled materials. That comes from AHERA for surfacing, and there's some gray regarding what's surfacing and what isn't. In fact, our training classes, we have like hours-long arguments about this still 25 years later. I think it would be important to really be clear about what is considered sprayed or troweled. For example, orange peel texture applied to gypsum board. AHERA does not consider that a surfacing. OSHA does not consider that a surfacing. We want to make sure that the rule that you're creating does sort of have that indicated. And then the other thing is number H, it says a table listing all homogeneous materials sampled and identified as asbestos containing materials. It would be better if that said a table listing all of the homogeneous materials sampled and then go into detail about the ones that are identified as asbestos containing. One of the key components of an asbestos survey report are the samples tested that tested negative.
So Andy, if I just want to speak back what you said on both those points to make sure I'm understanding for myself. So you're saying from a technical perspective and a definition defining, we should be clear about what we mean when we're talking about something being sprayed or troweled, because there's some conversation about what that actually means. So if we can find a way to clarify that by what we mean, that would be helpful. And then the
What-
other item that you're speaking to is on how we're asking for what that list of survey items are, to have a table approach that makes it more clear to see what's hot and versus what wasn't hot in that holistic sampling that we're requiring. Am I kind of on the right path or?
Yeah. So just to go into a little bit more detail with time, obviously on my mind. If you have a survey report and all it lists are the materials that were tested and turned out positive, then how do you look back and figure out if something tested negative? And I mean, knowing that it's negative is just as important as knowing that it's positive.
Yeah, good insight. Thank you.
That kind of covered part of my question, which is great. Also, size of area, like here is like for 1,000 square feet, 3 samples. What about the contractor who does the bathroom remodel and takes out the tub and it's 25 square feet? Does he still need to bring us 3 samples of this drywall?
3 samples per, maybe some set
You know, I mean,
size. Well, I definitely noticed that throughout, when like even in the end when it talks about, minor sheetrock or it's small sample, like there've got to be guidelines. You can't leave those things so vague.
Mhm.
That's what leaves what's considered, well, this is just minor, this is just small, this is just, there really have to be more clear guidelines because it's definitely a matter of perspective. But I didn't quite think about that, but that's a really good point. 3,
the guys that bring one of each, one wall, one floor, and like, I don't know if you really covered it, but it's a pretty small area, so who's to say?
So if someone's like, I'm doing a thing and it's over here in the corner of the bathroom and it's too large for it to be just that small scale, kind of like doing it. But then if it's just still the wall, are we saying, yes, 3?
Pieces of the same wall
Yeah,
to meet the requirements, because they don't want to get dinged,
yeah.
And I see that from the surveys are done. Sometimes I see people doing 3 sampling of every type of identical flooring, vinyl. It's not, 3 isn't required, but they're getting tripped up on that.
Just because
I'd like to ask a question too. When we're talking about owner occupied and intended to be used as a rental, people's concepts of what they're going to do with their property oftentimes change. So maybe they're not going to use it as a rental now, but 2 years down the road, they're going to use it as a rental. And then the other question that came up was, how about Airbnb, where it is an owner occupied, but it's occasionally a rental?
So that would be I even think under our current rule interpretation, beyond just these changes here, that we would see that as not owner occupied. And so if it's an Airbnb and there's abatement work, you need to hire someone to have that be done. Definitely.
Okay, thanks.
so just kind of bringing that full circle since we're talking about it, there's a lot of similar words used for things like resident, dwelling, owner occupied, that is, it's meshing it for me.
Mhm.
Because are we talking about one and the same with some of these things? And so making sure that that's really clear too, because facility has a really extensive definition beyond even what DEQ has. It's modified a lot and it's quite confusing, just to let you know.
Definitely. As we get
So,
through this, there
yeah,
are definitely
which comes into play with some of this, so, okay.
definitions here for sure.
I was thinking though, back to your comment on the 3 samples is, as I've learned from Colleen and others that work in asbestos in that space more regularly, is it wouldn't just be the drywall, then there'd be the mud. And I have an old home and sometimes there's new drywall in one spot and old drywall just above it, right? And so in theory, because I know Colleen's concern is always making sure they're exhausting, that they've truly tested the space. I could see just as easy being like, okay, here's one of the drywall there, here's one of the mud here, and here's one higher up on the drywall, just to make sure that it is in fact, contiguous. So, I mean, I understand what you're saying. It's just, there could be a case made where it's like, it's not just, oh, it's just one piece of drywall
Yeah, three pieces of the same identical thing.
would be odd.
It's a little
Yeah,
redundant.
3 mud, 3 sheetrock.
They want it that number 3, so they just bring in 3 samples and,
Right.
yeah, you did just one wall to get out the bathtub or something. Okay.
All right.
If you go back and thank you, Heather. So yes, that's one we on. So another larger change here we have is the annual notification, the job size threshold. So we say for a small scale, providing some exact square footage, which is friable projects that are under 40 square feet or 80 linear feet that you're being used in that abatement. That qualifies as that small scale if it's under that. And then we have an ability to approve on an annual basis our small scale notification work. And that helps to clarify what that size is of too big or too small. Another item, so now we're kind of into the more moderate changes where we're not necessarily believing that this would change or be a requirement of behavior change, but is more just kind of a technical or definition type item. So this is updating facility and residential. So facility being commercial, industrial, and residential with 5 or more units. So that 5 or more units, I know, and Colleen, I think this came from a, is something an apartment complex, is something residential, how are we defining that? So that's where that nuance got pulled out of. And then the residential using as a home must be a residence before and after the work ends. So if you're buying something and then you're moving into it, that's not the same as if you own something and then you're still there. And then the exclusions still exist, but fire training, full demolition, and residential units in a commercial facility. Any other things there that I add or that I left out?
No, but that is a heck of a lot more clear than this, because it actually says or residential structure, installation, and then it says excluding residential buildings. So this is just not nearly as clear as that, just to let you know.
I will say, internally, when we were working through some of these red lines, there was a lot of reflection and thought put into how we want to approach our definitions. So, yeah.
Yeah, because just having residential structure in there listed like that and then having a comma makes it sound like residential. And then the only residential that's excluded is having, you know what I mean? So
And
it's,
you're speaking to what we're crossing out right on there, or is
no,
that
I'm
what's
the
been
new,
added?
the
Oh,
new language. Yeah. Because you get down later and it talks, residential being separate. And of course, it has to be occupied or, whether or not it's a rental and that sort of thing. But this was a lot to try to digest. And especially because I was looking at what DEQ has. And I'm, just for clarity and consistency, and their definition of facility is a lot cleaner, a lot easier to follow, I guess.
well, I think one of the things that might be, in our next meeting is more of a definition focused kind of talking point where we go through what those definitions are and then have what we have listed, and then we can receive that feedback that way too.
Because that's, certain ones are really critical to understanding of the rest later.
Okay. Let's see, the next change here is, abatements happening in a regulated area. So this is the intent here is to set more rules and parameters for what qualifies as a regulated area. This is number 44 in the crosswalk. Includes things, like sign requirements and only who can be in those zones. Section 43005. So this is more definition changes. This specifically in in terms of small scale. So this is a situation or circumstance where, let's say, a homeowner hires a plumber to come do some work, and the plumber needs to move the toilet and get in there a little bit, and so there is some adjusting and some taking out of items. The intent of that work is not to abate the asbestos. The intent of that work is to do the plumbing needs. And so this small scale definition is a way to provide that opportunity. And what's specific here that we're doing is we're removing language in the prior rules, where in the prior rule, we had this reflection on the air had to be below a certain CFI or CCF. I forget exactly what that stands for in units, which is if you have this small scale item, you have to make sure that it's also below the certain, there's not so much asbestos in the air. And that seemed to be really difficult in the intent of, I'm just trying to change the toilet. So just removing that requirement, and it's only now basically defined by how large of a project that is. Adams has a.
So 0.1 fibers per cc is the OSHA PEL for asbestos exposure. F per cc is fibers per cubic centimeter.
Thank you. Yeah, so that was the component that is removed in terms of this small scale definition. So sanding prohibition. This is any sanding, grinding, sawing, or abrading of asbestos is not allowed. New provision that says that those materials essentially can't happen unless they're being handled and disposed of as friable asbestos. This one is record retention levels. So our current rules have a 2-year retention for asbestos mills and manufacturing. And this is something that is changing to 5 years of a retention requirement of those records. So that's kind of what we're identifying as the largest, meatiest things to talk about with the CAC. We can definitely engage in more in the conversation discussion and then start to figure out the next CAC meeting, what would be helpful for us as staff to bring to further the conversation.
All right, you guys, who wants to start commenting? Do you have any other big red flags, I guess would be the first one, big meteor topics that we want to bring up to Travis that were your main concerns? Jesse. Go ahead.
So my question is in regards to the owner occupied. So if an owner intends to purchase a place, remodel it, and live in it, they could do the abatement themselves. But as a recent home buyer, I'm concerned that would that be disclosed to the person who bought it next, that the abatement wasn't done by a contracted person and was only done by the homeowner? How is that even relevant?
I see. So your concern is, let's say there's someone who has asbestos in their home and they use the owner occupancy rule to do that abatement themselves, and then turn around and sell it the next day. And is that person buying the home aware that perhaps the abatement didn't take place in the way that the new homeowner would want? Under our current rules and structure, there's no requirement that that seller notify that that was something that took place for the buyer of the home.
Under real estate
That
law,
answers my question.
under real estate law, you're required to disclose any defects in your home whatsoever. That would be a good question for a real estate professional if they ever discuss asbestos presence during real estate transactions.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, and don't think it's a defect. I think I remember this on some of the residential stuff, that it's like, if you know about mold, or if you know about something like that, but I don't think material construction was
Yeah,
or
I mean, I can
assuming,
see,
you know.
understand Jesse's perspective of like, if you buy a home and someone kind of made a asbestos mess of the house and you don't know, like, not, you know, that would be something you'd want to know about. But our rules don't touch that particular potential.
Adam?
Okay, I have a question about number 40 on the crosswalk. That is the definition for negative pressure enclosure. One, I think I would probably color that orange instead of yellow, because from an abatement professional perspective, that's a pretty significant impact. The other thing is I recognize where it came from DEQ, and I recognize where it went off of the script from DEQ. And I guess I think about, like, I get the intention. I mean, you're trying to prevent contamination from being left behind after abatement. But when you're talking about a smooth surface that can be cleaned, we're just wasting plastic and taking up landfill space. I don't know. If it were me, I think I'd just stick to the DEQ definition and leave the last part off entirely. But you could also be prudent and put something in there about covering porous or uncleanable surfaces. Anyways, just 2 cents from an industry person.
So Adam, I like to clarify just to make sure I'm understanding, but you're essentially saying that if there's a material and abatement project and from the perspective of the contractor, that is a stone or wall or something that can totally be washed, we can be confident there's no asbestos on it. And this requirement of asking us put that overlay over it, that plastic in addition to it, you're saying feels unnecessary and more wasteful potentially in terms of like the trash that you're developing from that project. Is that kind of the core of what you're saying here?
Yes, but I'd even go further. It's a waste of plastic. It's a waste of effort. It's a waste of landfill space. It is not an environmental decision to make.
Thank you.
Your comments?
Oh, and just as a quick clarification, I work for the University of Oregon. I manage our asbestos program, and we actually require walls and ceilings in all of our containments. But I just don't know that it should be compulsory for the entire, anyways.
Well, I appreciate the feedback. I mean, this is like the whole intent of this conversation is to like hear well, this rubs us in this spot, maybe we can make it not so rubby. That is exactly like what these conversations are. So that insight is helpful. Thank you.
On that note, I noticed that quite a bit with the DEQ definitions, and the additions by LRAPA definitely made it more confusing. The DEQ kind of going through that it was more simple, and it was almost like the additions just kind of complicated it. And as somebody, I think it's probably good we have a variety here, because probably to asbestos people who are more familiar with these, the changes are more obvious. But for somebody who's trying to like say, pick this up for the first time and know what I'm supposed to do, there's definitely some confusion as far as like being clear on what would need to be done.
Well, one of the intents when we started this is we recognize how there's some sections that are out of order in asbestos or in our Title 43. So wanting to get that more in order. So it makes sense as you're kind of reading through it from the front to back. And then our intent is to help clarify and to avoid confusion. I think there are a number of places where that has been successful, but seeing where other spots create that confusion is helpful to us, because that is not our intent, is to inject confusion. If there's a place where we're adding more requirements, that is more of a potential county item where we think that this would be helpful in protecting public health. But the main intent really is for clarity. So where the confusion exists is an important place for us to focus on.
So one example for me was under the, so there's a definition of asbestos abatement project. And under DEQ, there's the asbestos project, asbestos abatement. But what's been added to this, which is really strange to me, is destruction due to natural disaster. But an abatement can't be destruction due to a natural disaster. And when you get down to the waste generator, it's the person performing the asbestos abatement project. But obviously there's not, the natural disaster isn't doing the project. So that addition reads really strange to me, because abatement is mitigation.
Okay. Back up again around 30, I'm sorry.
So under asbestos abatement project, right, it says means any demolition, renovation, repair, construction, and per DEQ or maintenance activity. But it's adding in destruction due to natural disaster.
Just easier to read the red line, which is page 71.
But that's not, an
7.
abatement project is not a natural disaster. So I'm just really thrown off by that particular one, which comes into play in 3 different other sections and definitions because of generator and these things based on an abatement.
My suspicion is that the desire when they were doing that was to ensure that a person wouldn't think that a natural disaster was not, that they could sidestep.
I agree,
I
but I
think
don't.
that's the concept, yeah.
I don't think you can call an abatement project a natural disaster. It just really, yeah, okay.
Yes, well, so our intent here is a hypothetical circumstance where you have a property that has 5 or so units and that property burns down or there's a fire. And then we come out to see that that took place and we discover that all of the debris and all the items that were with it aren't there anymore. And our question becomes, was there asbestos in it? Did it go to Short Mountain? You know, where is this at? And is this a health hazard that we are now not able to attend to and to keep track of? And so avoiding those potential circumstances is what our intent is
I
here.
think I got that. It'd be
Yeah.
like natural disaster mitigation or something.
So, but I mean,
Yeah,
this
good.
is a great.
What if you
go back.
replace destruction with mitigation? So it just says mitigation due to natural disaster. That's good advice.
And I guess I had one other question because under DEQs, they initially set a definition for the asbestos project having the 3 square feet. It's referenced later about that, but since it wasn't defined, it just kind of, so I guess in a lot of it with definitions, I see that they were matched, I would say. But one of the things, the differences is that DEQs spends a lot of pages on all the certifications and licensing. And so some of their stuff and their definitions has a place and context, whereas without all of those pages, it doesn't necessarily have the same context. So for example, the certified worker, it just in here just says a person who has a current organ supervisor certification. It doesn't even mention asbestos accredited. But because in here, that's where it was pulled from, it was under that section, it might be good to specify the certification or at least an accredited, because otherwise I'm an organ supervisor certificate, like it is not specific. So maybe just checking and seeing where those came from to make sure that it's referenced.
So I think an action item for us is in our next advisory committee meeting is to go through our definitions, kind of like specifically and at a point, to get to some of this feedback that we're hearing, I think.
Yeah, and I'll finish going through it and we'll be happy to submit just some of the.
Yeah, and the more you can help us identify these things, we're appreciative.
Which piece had referenced the 3x3? Do you recall? Just,
So, yeah, I think I
Is that-
would have known.
I know that I saw it deeper within, outside of the definitions. I just wasn't sure how DEQ addresses it. in
So
there.
they actually have it under definitions first. So, which set it kind of the precedent right away. It says. Let's see. I might have to get back to you.
Yeah, no worries. I just, because it might be helpful for us to kind of see where, oh, that's definitely a missing definition or bit of context for
Yeah.
earlier on. Because I do know it's cited later on. I remember seeing the 3x3. It's being this, you wouldn't have to abate a
Oh,
lot than that.
sorry, it wasn't, it was Washington. Washington, this has a definition I kind of was checking and just seeing on there. So I have other notes and it was just made very clear that the asbestos material, like they had this amount. So later when you get to it and you have this exemption, it was already described as, so that was just something that made it a little bit easier to follow, I think.
And the 3 square feet is the intent, not that you don't have to do abatement. What the intention is. If they're just intending to replace a light fixture and they're disturbing some public ceiling around it, they're not doing an abatement.
Mhm.
Other comments? Any other thoughts? Anything online? Any thoughts? I guess I would also ask about certified landfill for disposal, whereas DEQ has it more open. Because there are other locations, like the DEQ can approve places and for recycling. So I wasn't sure if that was specific, that it was just
So
certified
I know that
landfill.
we do speak to Short Mountain, but what you're kind of saying is instead of being quite so specific, we could be a little bit more broad and like,
Yeah, that was.
what does it
definitely
matter if
a
someone's taking it out of the county so long as it's going to a certified place to take it?
location,
Yeah.
Yeah, because I know that DEQ does some of those special waste allowances. So it might not be a certified landfill, but it's an accepted location.
I don't believe that waste is covered under the DEQ asbestos requirements necessarily. That's under waste disposal. And I thought that Lane County Solid Waste was responsible for regulations regarding waste disposal as well. I could be wrong about that. I don't turn to Title 43 for waste information.
No, it's in there. I should have marked up both of them.
I guess what we do is we go straight to the landfill. We call Lane County Solid Waste and we ask them.
I'll get back to that one later. Okay. All right. Well, we would definitely appreciate written comments. Feel free to mark up all over it, and questions. That's another thing. Highlight questions that come up, or, you know, and we want to, we can try to compile and kind of address this next time.
So for April's meeting, we can be prepared to come to the CAC with kind of basically, let's go through all of the definitions and how they're changing and have a discussion about that. Is there anything just in what we've talked about today or questions that may exist or just from a general topic perspective that's for us in terms of being prepared for the next meeting that we can have on an agenda for us to go through? Anything that stands out to people from that regard that we could consider?
I have a quick comment. So one, if I were to go through and make some comments in writing on, say, the red line version of Title 43, who would I send that to?
Email you wanted to go to.
Yes, you could send that to Heather. She's
Okay.
our CAC coordinator. And Heather, if you want to put in the chat your email.
Oh, is it the rules one you wanted to go?
Or, well, I think the rules one, that's
When
more
it's
when it's
official.
officially on public notice. We're still in the informal aspect of us putting our rulemaking together. So we can receive that in a pretty informal way too, but Heather can collect those. Thank you.
The other thing that I wanted to throw out there is I'm a public employee and have been for 15 years. I've got 25 years of experience in the asbestos business. And I volunteer to assist however I can. I wouldn't hesitate to reach out if you want to ask questions about what I know and what I've experienced. So anyways, I just wanted to make sure that you're aware that I'm available as a resource however needed.
Awesome. Thank you, Adam. I appreciate that. I strongly believe that you put one person in a room and they can be the smartest person in the world, and they will not be as smart as the 5 people in the room next to it, kind of working on the same thing. So, yes, I appreciate that opportunity for us to follow up with questions, and any insight that you give to us in the comment form will be valued too.
Perfect.
Did you share your email? in
Yep,
the thread?
yep. I did find that it's the definition of interim storage is where that whole landfill versus disposal site permitted came into effect. All right, so we have a plan for the next meeting. That sounds good. In the meantime, yeah, get comments submitted. And I guess if there's any other topics, and now that you guys are wanting in the near future, you can always propose stuff. But I think we've got our, we've got a few topics coming up. Otherwise, we'll just switch over to roundtable. That sounds good. We can start with people online. How about you, Joe? Any updates or roundtable today?
No updates really pertinent to this space. Just appreciated the conversation. Glad to see you in the space, Adam. It's been a while. Adam was the coach for my youngest kiddo for soccer. So it's neat to share professional space. But let's see. Yeah, public health work is going along. We'll have some updates about some program changes in the future. Nothing directly to me, but there's just some shuffling now that there's funding coming from OHA's Health Equity Grant that will give us a little bit more capacity community-wide, including responding to air quality emergencies, or even just the need to help respond to those in different ways with some volunteer capacity. So I can tell you about that more later.
Thank you. Can you hear us?
Who'd you call for?
Yeah. Do you have any updates for us, Chris?
I heard you that time. It was broken. Not really, as it relates to, our current topics. Obviously, air quality and fire season's coming. I think LRAPA and the regulatory arm of that, I would say there's probably, well, unless something significantly changes, there's going to be almost 100% certainty that we will not make the burn ban of mid-June, and we'll have to up that. We could easily be in fire season by the start of June at this rate. There's already been several wildfires around the county, both sides of the freeway. So it's actually a fairly dismal outlook, to be honest with you. But and most of the United States is in severe drought, which means there'll be a competition for resources. So at any rate, I've been doing this a long time, almost 40 years. I'm very concerned about the summer, so we'll see what happens. But and then as far as back kind of to today's topic, Adam, really appreciate your comments. Thanks for being here. And you did say we could reach out to you, but I don't know. Do we have your contact information? I don't know if there's a way to contact you, put it in the chat maybe, or.
Heather sent me an email. The chat's turned off.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So Heather, you're welcome to share that. My
Okay.
email. It's public information anyways.
Okay.
All right. Just you made the offer, and I was looking in the chat, and I didn't see your contact information. So
The chat is off from a defensive
Yeah.
approach in terms of Zoom bombers or people who can maybe
Understand.
make more of a
Yep.
zoo of things than we're hoping for. So yeah.
I
That's
understand.
actually my second job. I'm a Zoom bomber.
Yeah, I'm all done. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Chris. Ben? The updates are,
Nothing for me today, no. Thank you.
thank you. Jesse?
The one thing that I have been letting everybody in all of the spaces I'm in know about is the Rural Health Transformation Grants. It's basically going towards anything that could better rural health outcomes in Lane County. And I really think that there might be some overlap that we should look into seeing if there's anything we do that we could apply for those grants.
Thank you.
And do you know, Jesse, who that is, who the funder is? Is that like a state or is that federal or,
It's federal, and if you let me know who I could send the information to, I've been going to all the webinars and everything, and I could forward some information to you guys.
yeah, if you want to pass that to Heather too, that would be great. Just from a potential funding perspective, I do like to know of there's lots of opportunities and most of them don't actually align, but every once in a while, there's a great one. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, a couple different things. Noted the tear down of Sacred Heart. And I imagine there's a lot of fireproof steel in that structure and probably also a lot of asbestos insulation around some of the heavier piping in that. And I've always had some concerns about asbestos concrete pipe that's used in the water and wastewater industries, saw it a lot by people who work with those. And then I noted in our in our rules that we were talking about asbestos being used in asphalt. And that sounds like a really unintelligent idea to my mind, considering asphalt only lasts, the surface of asphalt only lasts 5 to maybe 7 years. Even deeper asphalt will only last like 20.
It all depends on the,
But I just don't
traffic,
know
but
if there's much of that
there's
done.
so many specifications and that's not usually an allowable inclusion. So I
good.
think it's highly unlikely, although I would say from a geology standpoint, there are certainly basaltic quarries on the Oregon coast that have some,
Yeah,
anyways.
I think that
So
the
it
board
might
talks
have
about
something to
ways
do with
in
that, but yeah, I'm not, that is something that is not a common.
Yeah, not something I was even really trying either. So.
Yeah.
Good.
So I'm not sure if that may be something in the past that was more common. Asbestos
It's
or
very
shingles.
common in locations where they mine asbestos.
That's kind of what I was thinking, where you have to have it
You
in
might
your
have-
rock to be able to have it in your asphalt.
Well, and it's a great use of tailings. I'm from Vermont originally, and a lot of the roads in northern Vermont are quite blue as they age. You can imagine and they mined asbestos in northern Vermont, so it was quite common in asphalt on the East Coast.
Yeah, there's quite a bit of language about mining asbestos in here that I was like, yeah, the applicability, but, well, thank you. Peter?
Nothing for roundtable. I really appreciate the discussion today. It was very productive and helped me with some questions that I had, and looking forward to next month.
All right. Anybody have anything else to add?
Chair, have anything to add?
Well, not really. Just thank everybody for your time. Apologies that I didn't get through it. It's been a bit hectic. And I look forward, to delving into the rest that I didn't get to and sharing information and learning more. I can't remember the name of the group, so I was hesitant to say anything, but on the McKinsey Watershed Council, there's a subgroup of the Pure Water Partners that are going around and working with local farmers of all sizes to do more sustainable farming. And it's kind of a neat approach and could obviously come into play with some of the dust and some of that other stuff. And so if I get any more information, I'll be happy to share it because it sounded just fascinating, farms of all sizes, but things they can do to maximize their yields, but also minimize environmental impacts. So I thought that was pretty fascinating. So
Usually there's a cost saving venture in that too,
it's
typically.
really- yeah. And it was interesting to hear about some that were, well-established farmers being a little bit more reluctant to the new approaches, but with new information, that there's absolutely things that can be done that benefit everybody. So I kind of thought about that from the dust and, some of the thinking back about burning and those sorts of things. So I'll bring some information if I get some more on that. Other than that, that's it. So thank you, everybody. With that, we can adjourn the meeting a couple minutes early.
Thanks for
Thank you.
the feedback.
Thank you.
You'll be better off for it. So thank you.